In today's episode of Throttle Stop Garage, we're going to get going on the details to finishing the carbon fiber doors. Alright, so in episode 67, we got the carbon fiber skins bonded to the original metal doors, and I'd painted all the insides of the doors and had those finished and prepped and everything was ready to go. Now it's time to finish all the other details on the door. So in many other videos that you see, it's sort of magic, right? I mean, the panels suddenly appear and they're all done and everything's fine. Unfortunately, this isn't that kind of video. I'm going to show you all the details. So these are all the details that you need to get done in order to actually have a viable panel that's ready to go onto your project. So there's many things that you have to do. And in this episode, we're going to get them all done, right? So we're going to have a look at the hardware for your doors. We're going to have a look at how we get these things prepped and primed and mounted properly. All the little details that will catch you up. So grab a coffee. Come on along and let's have a look at the process. All right, so we're going to go back in time here just a little bit, and this is before the skins were put on the door, and I noticed, I noticed from a long time ago that the sheet metal on the edges of the door, which to me are visible when I open and close the door, are very wrinkly, so they needed to be shrunk, and in this case, I'm just cold shrinking them. So I got my hammer and dolly out, and I'm hitting the sheet metal to sort of blend the sheet metal in to try to tidy it up as best I can. So that was the quick version of how you do that. So you just knock the sheet metal back in very carefully. Don't stretch it, right? You don't want to hit it hard enough to stretch it. Then after the skins were put on the car, I go back in and I'm going to mask off every single hole. Now, I know I'm going to fill these doors, right? I'm going to sand off all the paint. I'm going to go in and get the Bondo out and fill it. And I just don't want the insides of these doors to be hopelessly dirty when I'm finished all of this work. And you know that's what's going to happen. So for the hour that it takes in order to get it all masked up properly, I think it's well worth the time to get the masking paper out. Back mask all these areas and then just get all the holes filled, and you'll have a lot less cleaning to do when you're finished. So here I am just getting all of that, the fun work done, and you get all the holes cleared off. Now, half the time when you do this, you discover, oh boy, I need to get inside the door and get after something. But you can always pull these paper panels out if need be as you're doing it. Okay, so the last of that little bit of masking goes in. And now we're pretty much fully taped up. So the door's a sealed unit now, right? So nothing can get in it. So now it's time to get the grinders and sanders out and get all of the material buffed off the car. So I haven't sanded any of this stuff since it came out of the molds. But here, I guess you can put Bondo. I don't like putting Bondo over paint. I think that's a bad practice, but I don't mind putting it right over sheet metal. And you can see that it's reasonably straight, actually. Like I've got most of the big dents and dings out of it. But I am going to need to get in there and sort of buff off all the paint that I can, so that we have a good bond between the sheet metal and the filler, whatever filler brand you choose to use. Okay, so that's all done. Now there's the repair areas down in the corner, so they get a little bit of the shorts or long strand body filler because it's waterproof. So I want to make sure that those areas are sealed up really nicely, and like there shouldn't be any pinholes. I TIG welded them, so I'm sure they're good, but well, better safe than sorry. And then the lightweight body filler. On we go with the lightweight body filler. So it's kind of funny. I just want you to watch where the latch hole, like I'm trying to keep the body filler away from the latch hole as I'm doing this, and it's absolutely hopeless. So there's no chance that I'm going to win this battle, but I keep trying. The razor blade out there, trying to keep that hole nice and neat and tidy. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. But hey, this is a bit of a hopeless adventure doing the sides of a door. So anyway, on you go. You start getting in, you're getting it all sanded up, sanding away all of the sides, the edges. I wore off my fingerprints once again, so my phone wouldn't recognize me for the last many weeks. It's always fun. Fingernails start to get too short and, and are painful. It's just detail work, right? It's not fun work, but it's detail work. So I always think, well, I can do it now and move this panel into a component, or I'll have to do it later.
All right, so just breaking the Bondo down a little bit of 80 grit on the DA, and that the dual action sanders can't really get a panel very flat. Like it's pretty close, but I want these to be perfect. So and then there's no point. I know it's hopeless. Don't comment that this is insane in the comments. I know this is insane. In fact, I even had my neighbor come over, hi Ken, and tell me that it was insane. So, anyways, working our way here. A little bit of guide code on the filler just to make sure that you can see where your highs and lows are. And remember, as soon as you see the steel pop up, that's far enough. You can't sand past that. And if you're still getting areas when the steel comes up that the rest of the panel isn't level, and you can see there's the odd little spot there, you will need to get your body hammer out and lightly ding those back down in order that you can get the panel nice and flat. All right, so I'm still trying to stay away from all the holes and things, and it's hopeless. Eventually, I'm just gonna Bondo over the whole hole, and just call it a day, because it's gonna drive me crazy. And I wasn't able to be out as often as I wanted to be. I mean, I was planning on having this entire episode. I just watched an episode of Mighty Car Mods, and it took them like 4 or 6 hours or something to put an exhaust on their BRZ. And I just thought that's hopeless. It took me 40 hours just to sand the edges of my doors. Not that I'm trying to compete with the boys down in Australia, but just so you get an idea of the difference in time. Bolting on an exhaust on your car, hundreds of thousands of people will watch that, and it took them just a few hours to put it together. This is 3 weeks worth of work. Not that I'm complaining. It is what it is. Um, right. So back to the Bondo. If you've not done a whole lot of work with plastic body filler in your life, don't fool yourself. Start with 60 grit at the sort of least. I often will sand it with 40 grit. You have to rough it in to get basic flatness to the panel, and then you can hit it with a guide coat. And you could come in with an 80 grit after I've got the basics roughed in, and then I can work my way down in grits from there. I do not bother with trying to. I don't think I can get anything really nice and straight even with 80 grit. I think I would. It takes too long. And then you can put another coat of Bondo very lightly once you've got the scratches left by a 40 or a 60 grit paper is quite severe, and you just wipe a very very thin coat of Bondo over top of the scratches in order to fill them up. So, can you sand and drink coffee at the same time? I can. Practice makes perfect, folks. All right, so all the little edges get done, and there I finally admitted that I've got to break these areas back out. So the angry end, right, comes out on the end of the die grinder, and I get in there, and that is nerve-wracking work. One slip of the die grinder, and all of that work will be a mess. But I didn't slip, so I got that all done. And I got all the holes drilled back out. There's so many screws in this door that it's a bit unbelievable. Anyway, and then I taped the holes back up. I finished sand, and that's the first week and a half worth of work done. These little areas in the middle, I just wanted them. I just wanted them perfect. I don't know why. I become obsessed with things as I get working on them. Maybe you're like me. I don't know. And then I turned around and I'm looking at the hinge side of the door, and I know it's the hinge side of the door, and I know you can't see the hinge side of the door. And I'm just carefully trimming out. There's a little bit of seam sealer that the factory has put in along just that side of the door. So get that all knocked out. And you're going to watch as I lose my mind here. I left the footage in for that. So I'm sitting here sanding away on this side. I'm like, it's the hinge side. No one cares. It's the hinge side. And then I'm going along, and then I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and I start, I sand it a little bit here. I keep looking at it. Like it's taking me, and as soon as I got to there, I stopped, I paused, and I went, oh, I guess I'm going to fill the hinge side. And knock the rest of the paint off of it. Now, there's some deep spot welds, and it looks agricultural. I was not happy with how this looked at all. And I know no one can see it. I know no one cares. But out again comes the long strand body filler, because you need it for the deeper holes. I don't like using the lightweight for that. it's the right product for that kind of application. These still aren't that deep. I mean, this isn't like a 1/4 inch deep or anything like that. And then don't be afraid to rough this stuff in with some, again, pretty coarse sandpaper. I just did it first with the grinder, and then I hit it with the DA. And then after the DA, again, we'll go through the same process where the application of the lightweight filler will go on, and then we'll work our way through the whole process of getting the edges of the doors perfect. So if you ever see this car in person, have a look at the hinge side. I'd appreciate it. So anyway, so the hinge side gets all done up, sanded off, and this is, again, the detail work that goes in to getting these things done is, well, it's a bit crazy. So you can see there, it's not real flat. Well, it never was. Anyway, so I'll knock that down, get it perfect, and get it all flattened out, and get it finished up. All right, so the join areas there between the carbon fiber skin and the steel, that's where I'm going to use that RDR repair paste again, and then I've added some chopped carbon fiber to that mix. Now, when this particular mix sets up, boy, is it ever hard, but it bonds super well to the carbon fiber as well as the steel. And it's not like a Bondo or a plastic body filler product. It has a very long working time, so you can work it really carefully, and the result is a structural repair. I mean, that's as strong and stiff. It's actually harder than the carbon fiber skin itself. So you got some time to play with it and make it all nice. So I did that, and that's it's a whole day. You got to let it sit now for 6 hours to go off.
Okay, let's just have a quick look at the hinges. So pretty happy with the way everything turned out. Again, I don't even know which one was the really bad one, but I have found a problem. So let's just have a look. You got to inspect each one of these parts really carefully. Okay, this is the bad one. All right, so I'm going to try to show anyway, so hopefully this is going to work. But watch the pin. Okay, so there's the head of the pin. There's the end of the pin. And they're not moving. Right? So this part here, the pin is rotating with this leaf. All right, that's fine. Watch on this one. Okay, so there's the head. You'll see it rotates with the leaf. And on the pin side, it does not rotate with the leaf. So you can only conclude that the pin is broken somewhere in here, probably up by the head. So now I've got to replace this pin. One way or the other, it's just going to fall apart at some point later on down the road. So best fix it now. All right, everybody, the hinge story, it's going to continue. So here we have the broken hinge, right? So somewhere in the middle of this, the pin is stuck. I've tried to drift the pin out. You can see I've heated it. I've done everything. So that hinge is done. Because just if I put that in the car, for sure it'll just fall apart in time. And then after I got these buffed up, so they actually looked just about perfect, but I hadn't done any of I hadn't soaked them down with my penetrant yet. So just threw a little penetrating oil in them, and look at what's come out of here. Absolutely unbelievable amounts of rust, like to the point where this hinge formerly I thought was fine, right? And now you can see, I don't know how well you can see, there's like an epic pile of slop. Is the only thing that was keeping these hinges tight was the rust. All right, so I've ordered new hinges. So there's nothing much I can do about that. And we're just about done the hinge sides of the car. So I just got the sanding. It's just about done here. So I'm going to finish this off. And then we'll get the rest of the paint polished off these parts, these doors. And I'll get them primed. And then we'll be done. Okay, so stick with it. We're just about out the door here. And a quick phone call and a credit card to Sweden, and I've got brand new hinges, and they come in the blue Volvo bag. So these are original parts, which is awesome that you can still get these. In order to get the hole for lubrication put in the right spot, I had to get the height gauge out and get a little bit of measurement done. And then it's over to the drill press for a 1/8 hole.
And then because it's an oiled hinge, they have a reasonably generous relief chamfer put on the top of them. So in the chamfer bit goes, and we toss that in. So these are just, as per original. So now they're fine. And then we clean them up a little bit, and then I discovered that in essence, once I got the mating leaf out of the bags, that they don't fit. Anyone else surprised other than me? So they sort of fit, and I guess you could kind of smash them together and drift the pins in, and they'd probably be okay. But that's never going to do. So I just it's not the way I roll. So out the file comes, and we get them. I decided to clean them off too. They appeared to be sort of a cast steel, and they looked a little bit rough. So a little bit of handwork here, just to sand file, deburr them. But then I start the process of fitting each one of those leaves to each other, so they become a mated pair. And I don't think that, I mean, maybe somebody will argue with me, but if you swing a door back and forth, like maybe you'd get enough abrasion in there to get the steel to eventually to sit nice, but why not put your hinges together so they actually work nice right from the start? So again, a little bit of file work initially, and then you can see I've got a stone in the background, right? So that's where the machinist past comes back to haunt you. And I even got the bluing out for these and made sure that they were like perfectly mated so that they were as slick could be. Deburr all the holes, make sure it's neat and tidy, sand each one of those mating surfaces, or file each one of those mating surfaces, I should say, and they're going to be just fantastic in the end, right? So these hinges should be absolutely slick. So we start mating them here, start making pairs of hinges. The pins are going to lock in two different directions, a right side and a left side, if you will. So we get those done, and it took hours, like hours of fiddly handwork. There we are with the stone. I didn't include all of the footage, obviously. It's kind of intensely boring, but and then when I'm happy with the fit, which is when I don't feel drag at any point.
Perfect.
Then it's time for a final cleanup. So just a little bit of wax and grease remover, tidy everything up, make sure I'm 100% happy with it, make sure there's no grit or anything left on them. I applied a little bit of grease to the inside of the pin, just very, very carefully. And then it's over to the press in order to press those pins home, because once they're pressed in there, they're not coming back out again. So just make sure, I mean, I just didn't want any grit or gunk or goop in there. And over to the press, made a mistake on the first one, tried to find the right way to press the thing in using the sort of V gap in the standard blocks. That didn't work well, but those little plates that I have with the holes drilled in them work perfectly. You just drift each one of those pins home, and now it's in assembly. Speaking of assemblies, here we go. So I like to bag up all my parts, and I have them sitting in large segmented boxes, the cheap ones that you can get at the local Walmart. Um, and I do that for each and every fastener. Like there's so many fasteners for this door, and I ordered everything from McMaster Cars, so it's all stainless, and I was able to get the correct U nuts. And I'll bring each part out. There's a glass run channel there, and then I note on the bag where the fasteners are, what they're for. So there's the door handles. They have to go off for chrome plating, but first I've got all new fasteners for those. And then I'm going to mark on each of the little bags, and then I put them all away. And boy, when I've done this in the past, when I go to assemble the car, like I know everything is done. All right, so now the final sanding. I know so much sanding in this video. I can't believe everyone's still sticking around for the end part here, but this is that RDR paste. It's really hard to sand. It's very, very, I don't know, it's just like super, super stiff. It's just about like steel. So I've got a nice little radius that I want to put in there. Normally there's a big ugly weld at that point in the door. And I've never liked that on the car. I want that to be a nice little filleted area there. So the RDR paste goes in, that's bonded everything together. So it did a fantastic job. So I've got all the areas cleaned out down the glass run channel. Don't miss any of the details when you're doing this, or you'll hate yourself when you go to put your glass in the doors. So I get everything all down. Now, because it's carbon fiber, you want to get your PPE on. This is, it's anyways, you shouldn't be inhaling any of this dust anyhow. But there I am, fully PPE'd up and safe. And then the final join. So again, some of the long strand body filler just where the join is on the car. I just didn't like how that transition looked ever. So then we're in with the final sanding. Yay! And I do have a dustless sander. I just don't use it very often. So it's a nice unit. So I don't know why I don't use it more often than I do. Anyway, so I just sand off all of the paint just to make sure I've got a good bond. And this, again, I probably just could have red Scotch brighted it and gone ahead and shot the primer. I am aware that there are door panels that cover the doors. But I'm also really fussy, and I think every chance that I can take to learn, because I don't do this all the time, that's time well spent. So I just go in there, hand sanding it now with 220 grit paper to make sure I've broken down all the gloss, take out any of the drips and runs that the factory left for me, and try to get this surface as nice and tidy as I can. And once I'm done with the hand sanding here at the 220, then I'll go back and red Scotch bright the area, because there's no chance that you're going to get every single nook and cranny done. Like the edges around the sides that you can see there around the glass, the outsides of the door, I should say, that's where the weather stripping goes. It's a metal strip. It needs to be sanded on the inside of it, or else the paint will just flake off and fail in those areas. So you have to carefully get inside every single one of those areas. So the red Scotch Brite works great for that. Just break down the gloss and make sure that it's got a nicely scuffed surface for the epoxy primer to stick to. Now, you don't have to worry so much about epoxy because it is, in essence, it's a sprayable glue in many ways. So it'll stick to just about anything, but it will fail if you try to spray it over a glossy paint. And if you've never worked on a car a lot and then skipped a step and had an error like that, the tears later are terrible. So I found a few dents once I turned the doors over on the top of the door frame, so I quickly got the spoon out there and dollied that back, hammered and dolly. It just needed a touch of body filler. Both door frames had little nicks and dings and things in them, so we get those tidied up. This took no time, just one evening to get those finished. And then we're just about at the home stretch. I mean, the number of times you want to stop and just blow the primer on it and call it a day, it's many. And then I didn't end up with all the footage of the painting. That'll happen. So get it all finished off, but I missed the first coat on everything. So it's quite funny, actually. To switch cameras, and this there's a reason I have a new camera. This one doesn't work well all the time.
Okay, so here we are, and we're all finished after several weeks worth of work, actually. Sorry, during the pandemic times here, it's very difficult for me to be out in the garage as often as I normally am. But you can see the finish is absolutely beautiful. Just, let's have a look at the other one. Just turned out so nice. I'm really, really pleased. So all that work to get the sides of the doors, get all the ripples out of the sheet metal, get everything prepped and looking just like you'd like it to look. Those just turned out beautifully. Also, hinges. The hinges are, I don't know if I can get them to focus. The hinges are great. Not too much paint on these, right? They still move free. Everything's beautiful there. These are the catches. Again, for the inside door part. So I'm now positive that everything is done as well as it can be done. Just continue to have a look here at the finish. I really, really want to shoot the color on these and just get them done. But that's going to probably be next year, I'm afraid. So next up, we'll unmask these and bolt them onto the doors, but I will spare you those details. Quite risky to do this way. You see how nice those turned out? This is really hard to handhold. Really hard. But it's these little details that just make the car. Okay. All right, that's it. That's everything for the doors. The doors are now finished up. And it gives you a look in at the process, right? So that was several more weeks worth of work in order to get that into a finished product that I'll be happy with. And I included the segments on me bundling up the nuts and bolts and making some of the other parts. Those are all the things that catch you out in any kind of build. You know, you get to the end and you imagine that, you know, you maybe have a coat of paint on the car now, and then you have to attend to the details. I like doing them as I go so that when I'm assembling the car, everything is bundled and ready to shoot it out the door. So when it's done, it's done. Anyway, thank you again for tuning in, and remember, stay safe, and we'll catch you on the next episode.